Greetings, guys, gals, non-binary pals, and welcome back to another episode of the SavvyCat Podcast, Season 2. As you will see, I am by myself. Or am I?
Psych.
So, currently, Kat is in Germany because she had to leave the country to renew her visa. So I have her on the phone with us. So it's just me in the studio all by myself. I had to carry all of my stuff here, and I looked silly. While Kat is in the comfort of her own home. Well, of her mum's home. In Germany.
I hope that you all know that I'm wrapped up in a blanket, sitting on a comfy chair.
And so, we just have to hope that this records okay. It's like a radio show when you take calls. That's how I'm viewing this. My arm is going to get really sore from sitting like this. Today's episode is going to be a little bit shorter because, as I said, my arm is going to get sore, and, Anyway, today's topic is very relevant because, Kat's in Germany, and the reason for that, I ran out of memory on my freaking camera!
Oh my god.
Okay.
Fucking nightmare.
Give me 2 seconds. I have to delete some things. Anyway, okay. We're back from our short intermission because I am silly and didn't delete stuff off of my camera that needed to be off my camera. So continuing on. Kat is in Germany because you have to get a piece of paper to live in a country, which is so silly. So silly.
It's not even a piece of paper. It's like they look at my passport and then they stamp it and they're like, you can now enter the country. It's like, thanks.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, and you were already living here. Like, they're like, sorry, you have to leave the country because this piece of paper says you've been here long enough, and then you have to pay a lot of money, and then we'll decide if we want to give you a new piece of paper or not. Like, why? Just let people live places. Countries are made up. They're made up.
They are. It doesn't make any sense.
It's so silly.
Especially because my visa is just like, oh yeah, my grandmother was born there. Can I also live there? Like,
it's so silly. Like, I don't get it. Countries are made up. We live on a floating rock, and people decided to draw imaginary lines and fight wars over it. It's so dumb. But in the big stress that is Kat having to leave the country to get a piece of paper, we've also been trying to find somewhere to live. And that has been an absolute nightmare process. Oh my good God. Like, why is it so hard to just live,
it's been actual hell. Like, the housing crisis going on in the UK right now is fucked. It's fucked. It's absolutely ridiculous.
The requirements is so ridiculous. It's so funny. It's so awful. Like, we earn good money, right?
Yeah.
And and yet it was impossible to find anywhere that we could afford. Which means that people who earn not good money, like average or below average, would really not be able to find anything. We barely could. We found one place.
And it still took 6 weeks for them to be like...
It took so long. The process of getting a place is ridiculous. And we had to... So they told us they accepted our offer, which is good, right? It's fucking expensive. For what it is, but it's fine. It's the best value for everything else that we saw in London. But then, they accepted our offer for our rent, and then they're like, okay, we're going to do the referencing process. And then they have to take all of your information and all of the money you earn and this, that, and the other. And that was annoying because they ask for so much and it's so specific, and they didn't want to accept it because I only have a tax return from 2020, which is I only worked for 7 months because, that's when I arrived in the country and COVID and stuff. So then they could only verify 6 months of my earnings, and they didn't. So then they were like, your salary is half as much as it actually is, and that's not good enough. But you can see that it's only for 6 months.
It's so ridiculous.
Double it.
Especially Especially given the current situation that the world has been going through right now, you would think they would have some kind of comprehension and understanding that COVID may have ruined a couple things for a couple people.
Well, it's
and I understand that's why they've hiked up all the prices of the housing, because they've obviously lost money during this time. But that's not comprehensible. Like, you're not going to find anyone that can pay those.
Because we've also all lost money over this time. Shocker.
It's obviously pushing us into we're already in a recession.
Yeah.
It's pushing us further into it. And it's just ridiculous because, this is all going to blow up in everybody's faces.
Yeah. And it's this thing, it's the same thing as I've seen people who are trying to apply for jobs and stuff, and they have a 6-month break in 2020, and the employers are okay, but why is there a 6-month break in your resume? And they're why the fuck do you think there was a 6-month break in the middle of 2020, you dumbass? They're we can't hire you because you had a break here and we don't know why. And it's my guy.
I've never understood that when employers are why didn't you have a job between these two times? And it's the time that you're in right now. And it's because no one will hire me because there's a break between my last job and my next.
But that's the problem. They're well, no one else wants you, so why would we want you? Fuck, that's so illogical. It's so illogical.
It's fucking ridiculous. It's fucked.
And then, so the process of getting the place was so frustrating because we told them the situation of Kat's visa, right? We told them, she's going to have to leave to renew her visa soon. Is that okay? And they, didn't answer us, but they kept going with the reference process. And then it finally was able to get accepted after they saw my savings. And just putting on record, my savings is enough to pay 8 months of rent because Kat and I had to pay 6 months of rent in advance at our last place. So we were paying rent every month into a savings account so we would be able to do that again if they asked for it, which I think is a big brain of us.
Please save money.
Yeah. And so I proved that I was able to pay 8 months in advance, and they saw my salary, which was half of what it actually is. And they were still sorry, you don't earn enough, because they expect you to have triple the amount of rent. They wanted me to have £72,000 salary a year, which is who earns £72,000 a year and wants to live an hour's train out of central London in a place with chipped paint and old carpet, you know?
It's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, and so then we had to do a guarantor process, and this makes no sense. This is the most illogical thing ever, right? So a guarantor is a family member who basically is if they don't pay the rent, I'll pay it for them. And this is the most insane thing ever because they don't take into consideration what I already earn. It has to be one person and they have to earn 3 times the amount of rent. So I had to get a guarantor who earned £72,000 a year or had that much in savings. And it didn't matter that I had enough money to pay for 8 months of rent. It doesn't matter. They're yeah, but just in case you don't pay, but I can prove that I can pay. And it makes no sense. Why is that a rule? I can't figure it out.
It's so silly. It's so silly.
It's you're just shooting yourself in the foot because you can see that I can pay you for at least 8 months. But that doesn't matter. I need a family member to earn $72,000, and then it can't be joint either. So
it's also ridiculous because they didn't take assets into account.
No,
right? They didn't to take assets into account, which I think is so funny. As a real estate agent and as a landlord, you don't take someone owning a house as a recognizable proof of income.
Yeah.
That is legitimately the most looking in the mirror and calling yourself an asshole situation I've ever heard.
It's so funny.
It's this thing of you do grow up and you kind of try and rationalize people just want money.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, they just want money. And it's a shitty thing to realize, but you do realize that.
Yeah.
So you do everything you can in whatever situation that you put in, and you're like, I will do anything to give myself shelter, food, and water. At the end of the day, those are three things that you need to live.
Yeah.
So you put money aside, you work hard, and then you present someone like, I have this money. Can I please have shelter? And they're like, no. I can't put myself in the position where I would be the one denying someone shelter. You know?
No, especially if they can prove that they can pay you for it.
Exactly.
It's so strange. And like it's so ridiculous because like the realtor was like, the landlord's getting frustrated at how long this is taking. I'm like, well, maybe they shouldn't have such ridiculous requirements and we could have been done with this 3 weeks ago. They're getting frustrated. I'm frustrated. I want somewhere to live.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's this thing with me, but I really cannot empathize.
No.
Or like see reason with someone who is a landlord, honestly.
Yeah. It's this
Like,
it's like
I do understand buying a house and then like lowering the price if you have multiple houses and you have the income to buy like 2 houses, you live in one and then you rent out the other one for a smaller price.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You may not make much money off of it or anything, but if you're kind and understandable and you're like, I will give someone shelter because I can provide it.
Yeah.
I get that. But being like, I want to hike up the price for much more than it's worth and then make sure that people hand over what? Like it's like 90% of your income? I don't know.
Well, it's supposedly the average person spends 60% of their income on rent. But then I'm confused because you're also expected to earn 3 times the rent. So like it feels like I think they've just like landlords are expecting more and more from you. And I think it is because they want to increase the rent. So they have to prove that like they're like, you have to earn 3 times the rent right now. And then in a year when your lease is up, I've got proof that I can increase the rent and you can afford it.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also like this thing of like, they don't, it's 60% of your earnings on rent.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to pay for water and electricity and council tax and any repairs on the home and anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's insane.
So it is literally just a roof.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. It's not it's not worth that much. It's so insane to me. And like it's just ridiculous, and the amount of hoops you have to jump through and the amount of shit you have to do and how invasive the process is so ridiculously unnecessary. And like I just really, really do not understand why it's so difficult and why they make it so hard to find somewhere to live. Because like at the end of the day as well, like if you expect such high things from your tenants, you are going to struggle to find someone to fill the space, and then you end up with it being empty and you're like, I want to charge this much, but it's going to get to a point where like they're asking for so much to the point where like so many properties are just going to be empty because no one's going to be able to afford it, and all these landlords are going to be losing money because they're like, no, I need to charge this much. It's like, if you charged less, you could have people committed to living there for longer,
Exactly.
It's so weird to me. Like, if this process hadn't taken this long, we could have been paying rent for a month already. They've lost like £2,000 because they've been assholes about it. Like, guys, like, you're being so stupid.
It's also this thing of like just considering who the people who do this are, right? And this is entirely based on assumptions, and I recognize that. But they're also the type of people to like wonder why there's such a big class divide, and why there is so much of a homeless population, and like, all of those things. And I think it's so fucking hypocritical. Yeah,
they're the type of people who are like, work harder. I'm like, your income is literally coming from scamming people. You're making people pay to live, and you're like, work harder. You don't do shit. like fuck off. It's
I think
insane.
this might be the angriest podcast we've ever done.
Oh, it's so annoying. And like, we're really lucky that my auntie and uncle that we live with, they do have very good savings. So we were able to prove the income. So we did manage to get the place. But we're really, really fortunate because a lot of people don't have £70,000 in savings.
Yeah, it's this thing of like, the reason why I'm angry is like, I understand that we did get it.
Yeah.
And we do now have a place to live. But I'm still pissed off because I understand that is such a privileged thing.
We only got it because we are in a very privileged position. It's like that thing of like, you see all those articles of people being like, I bought my first home. All it took was my parents giving me $100,000 to put down on the deposit. That's how we got this.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. It's so privileged.
We can't take credit for it. Like,
no.
And I know that it's that thing. We're not going to he's not going to ever pay for it. But we did have to use that and use the fact that I have family that have money in order to be able to live somewhere. And that's so fucked up.
It's so awful because it's really showing the fact that things are it's getting worse, and that's upsetting.
Yeah.
It's really upsetting
another
to
thing
recognize that us just, that we're privileged. And I've always known that. It's just, I hate that it's just getting worse and worse and worse.
Yeah. And the other thing that plays into it that I find really interesting, another thing is like, they make it harder for foreigners too, because you can't get a guarantor that's outside of the UK. So like my mom can't be a guarantor because she doesn't live in the UK. She doesn't have a UK bank account. And I think that's really silly because like international transfers, those exist. And there's a lot of foreigners and stuff live in the UK, especially London. And so they do make it increasingly difficult because there are people, obviously a lot of people who live here would have, some money back home.
Yeah.
And they can't even use that. They make it so much harder. And especially like you can't rent a place if you don't have like at least 3 months worth of earnings, preferably 1 to 2 years. And so people who are new to the country obviously can't prove that. Or even people who are first moving out of home obviously can't prove that because like they haven't been earning. It used to be an expectation you'd like leave home when you were 18, but they've made it pretty much impossible for anyone to do that anymore.
Yeah, and it's so silly because like the generation before us, like our parents and stuff like that, not necessarily saying our parents, but like parents of our generation have, they expect that it's still the same and they refuse to listen that it's different. So they'll be like, oh, you're 18, you have to leave the house now.
Yeah.
It's impossible now. So many children still.
Yeah, my sister's friend got kicked out as soon as she turned 18. And like she was still in high school. And she turned 18 and her parents were like, okay, you can't live here anymore. You've got to go and be independent. And they didn't give her any money or anything. So she had to go live with a friend on a couch, try to find a job. She had to drop out of high school in order to support herself because her parents said, you're 18, you have to live by yourself now. Like,
which is abusive.
In Auckland.
Yeah.
That's so fucked up.
And there is a generational divide where people just don't understand that not only is the housing market so much more expensive than it ever was. Not only is food more expensive and not as accessible, not only is, the water bills are higher, we now have to pay for internet, which is something they've never had to pay for before.
And phones, like cell phones and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And school is so much more expensive now.
Yeah.
So you can't just, take out a student loan and then not only use the student loan to pay for your school, but also living and stuff, because people used to do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, my mom went to uni before it was expensive, so she didn't have a student loan or anything. She barely paid anything for uni.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
In Europe, uni's like 200 euros a year. Why isn't it like that elsewhere? It's like 200 euros to go to uni in France. Huh?
For Europeans.
Yeah, for Europeans. But, like, it's not like that for, like, New Zealanders in New Zealand or British people in England kind of thing. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's more, I guess, the display of, like, it is still possible in some places, so it should be possible everywhere kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
In New Zealand, they're doing you get your first year of uni free, but you have to, so you can test out uni, but if you want it free, you have to keep living in New Zealand for at least 5 years, otherwise you have to pay it back.
It's so gross and manipulative and just exploitative. It's just exploitative.
It's so unnecessary. It's absurd. Anyway, yeah, it just, like, it shouldn't be so hard to live. You shouldn't have to, like, work your fucking ass off just to be able to, like, pay for food and have a roof over your head. That should just be stuff that you have. And every time I say that, I always get comments being like, who do you expect to provide the things? You have to work in order to keep society going. I'm like, okay, provide people with the bare minimum, right? Give people, like, the absolute confirmation and an assurance that they will have shelter, food, water, internet, because internet is actually vital. You can't really do much without internet anymore. And, like, food. I don't know if I said that already. The, like, absolute necessities. Everybody has that, regardless of whether you work or not. And then in order to get, like, a bigger house or whatever, then you can work for that kind of thing. I don't know. Like, that would please, at least that would be a middle ground to, like, please everyone. But also have a cap on how much, like, people get, like, a more equal wage for no matter what job they do, because all jobs are important and people seem to overlook the fact that, like, you know, supermarket workers and, like, retail workers and janitors, etc., like, we can't function without those. They're, like, very necessary jobs. They shouldn't be paid as little as they are. You can separate the, like, wealth divide by just, like, paying people more fairly, dependent on, like, not even dependent on what their jobs are. Everyone should just get, like, the same sort of salary.
I also find it so interesting because, like, the whole comment of, like, who do you expect to pay for those things? And I understand that this is, I don't know, the way I was brought up maybe, or just my morality code. But, like, if I had money, I would.
Yeah.
And I gladly do that.
Yeah.
But it's not possible to do that for everybody. But, like, if I had lots of money, I would gladly take the expensive taxes and everything if it went into these things.
Yeah.
I'd ask for more if I could afford it. But it's not.
Yeah.
And everybody that has that money doesn't seem to be willing to do that.
Which is so,
like, yes, I do expect you, billionaire, to pay it.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
It's like, and it's the thing of, like, if we got rid of billionaires or whatever, and, like, it is that thing of redistributing the wealth, I don't think is enough, because it'll just keep the same thing. It's just going to keep happening over and over again. But it's a good start, at least.
It's just ridiculous because often the most empathetic and understanding people are people who have gone through this exact struggle, because they can comprehend that it's happening.
Yeah.
If you live in a big house and get jobs as soon as you want them, or just have money whenever you want it, you obviously, something needs to happen for you to understand that there are people like that. Like, life isn't like that. But it's this thing of, like, if you have now access to the internet and everything that you do, and television and shows and interviews and magazines and everything like that, now you have the entire planet yelling at you at your face. This is not how it's like for everybody. People are dying and in pain, and you're like, not my problem.
Work harder.
That's a direct reflection of you being ignorant, not unknown, ignorant.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that shouldn't be acceptable.
Yeah. It's all so fucking ridiculous. People just don't want to accept that there's a problem that's, like, out of people's control. You can't just work harder or do things. Like, it's you're being forced to overwork yourself to the point where, like, you don't have time or the ability to, like, do the things you want to do or grow your, like, career or anything like that because you're so busy having to do the small things in order to just survive. And they do that on purpose, obviously. It's like I keep thinking about that one TikTok you showed me of that girl who worked a full-time job overnight and then a part-time job during the day while also being a university student and trying to start her own business. And people were like, kind of almost making fun of her, like, this is a problem, this is mental health. And they were like saying that as though that was her, like, it was like almost making fun of her. But it's like, I understand, like, she had to work that much in order to make money because you have to spend money to start your own business, and starting her own business is clearly what she wants to do. So she had to work jobs in order to support herself to do the job that she wants to do. And she had to go to university to study how to, like, run a company kind of thing. And it's fucked. You shouldn't have to do that.
It's so funny because they were making it out like they were making fun of the whole thing that's going around, like hustle culture and hustle life, stuff like that. But the fact that, like, the only reason she was working those jobs was so she could live her dream. She was like a beauty
technician kind of thing,
or something like that. That's obviously what she wanted to do. And I guarantee that if you gave her enough money for her to do that, she wouldn't be working the two jobs.
No, she's not doing it to get rich. She's doing it so she can pursue her passion. And in order to do that, because you don't make money when you first start a business, so she has to earn the money in order to get the tools and things to get her business off the ground. And also she still has to pay bills and pay for rent and things. Like, she has to work that much. Starting a business is expensive. It's so expensive. It takes so long to earn any money off of that.
It's so silly because, like, these people will be like, you know, anti-capitalism, and then turn around and be like, but you have to work a job, two jobs that you hate, and you shouldn't work, you know, also the thing that you want to do. Let her do what she wants to do.
That's the thing, is the response being like, don't do the, like, beauty thing because that's overdoing it. It's like, but that's what she wants to do. She's, like, battling capitalism in the way of being like, I will do what I want to do. And yes, it is mental illness, but it's not her fault. It's making her mentally ill. She's not doing it because she is mentally ill, kind of thing. She just wants to do the thing that she wants to do. And unfortunately, this is the only way she can do it because she's also studying at uni, which, as we discussed earlier, is really fucking expensive. So she has to work two jobs to pay to live, to pay to get her business off the ground, and to pay back her student loans. Like, and she has to work overnight and not sleep because when else is she gonna fucking do it with all that on her plate? It's awful, and you shouldn't have to do that much. But I think that's a really good example of how much you have to do in order to do what you love 90% of the time. And, like, that's awful.
It's horrific. And with that angry story, I think we should end it.
Yeah. We have a place to live, though, soon. So that's good. At least we got there eventually, and I hope that anyone else looking for a place to live is able to find somewhere. And I'm really sorry that it's such a shit process. I know that lots of people are struggling right now.
And if you have, like, I know a lot of people who are struggling have, like, GoFundMes or, like, those pages or whatever. If you have those, I don't know how YouTube comments work, but, like, we're happy to share them.
Yeah.
And try and help you in any way we can. We don't have, obviously with this whole process, donating to everyone is hard, but we'll happily share and happily try and help you in any way we can.
Yeah. So yeah, with that, we shall leave you. Sorry, it's been a short one, but for obvious reasons. We'll be back in a couple of weeks.
Hopefully I'll be there.
Yeah, hopefully Kat will be back by then. That'd be cool. That'd be great. All right. Well, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you to our patrons.
Thank you to our patrons. We appreciate you all so much. If you would like to become a patron, you can go to patreon.com/SavvyCat. You get these podcasts, a week early?
Yes.
As well as other stuff. So check it out. And we will see you in a couple of weeks. All right. Bye.